Words of Wisdom is brought to you by Essentia Health and TV3 and LB Video Productions.
I'm MarryAnn Teiken, and I grew up in a small town right around Ogama, right at home, and I'm 88 years old.
And who are your parents?
Hugo and Alice Mertens. They had a family of 15 children, and I'm the 9th one in the family. We lost a baby sister when she was only 7 months old.
And you were saying that you were all born at home except for 2?
Except 2. There was eight boys and 7 girls. The first older ones, I don't remember too much of the first older ones. They was gone from home. There, my brother Ed, he wasn't supposed to be driving the pickup and stuff, but Mom and Dad happened to be gone, and he taught us younger kids to get in the back end of the pickup. So we did, and we drove up to Melky's Corner there, well, what we call where Weber's live now, Tony Weber. And then we got back home, and he said, "You kids can't tattle on me because you was out too with us." We're driving the pickup. So we had a good time. Oh, we had a lot of fun. We always had to get our chores, our dishes done, and our whatever we had to do. And we would go out in the wintertime. We would have a kind of a slight of a hill, and we would pail water and pour it down the hill, so we had a real ice skates that we would have. And there was many times that we would, even there wasn't enough sleds for us, so then we would take a shovel and ride on a big scoop shovel, try to go down the hill, or paper boxes. We used a lot of paper boxes going down the hill. There was 5 boys that was in one bedroom and 4 girls in one bedroom, and the 4 girls of us are all one after the other, and we all slept in one bed, and we slept crossways. Well, we always had a lot of ball games in the yard, and we thought it was such a big yard. And boy, now when I would see my home place, it was very small. We had a lot of horseshoes playing, and my dad was a musician. He played the drums a lot, and Tony played the accordion, my brother. And then there was some friends of theirs that they all was musical inclined. There was a lot of music going on and dances, just the get-togethers. Our next door neighbor was Gordon Moody, and my dad had pigs and they had pigs, and Gordon came over and told my dad his pigs were out. And he went out and he said, "My pigs are all in," and it ended up his own pigs were out. That story everybody knew about, the neighbors. Yeah, but they were good neighbors otherwise. They walked back and forth playing cards.
So what was life like growing up in the country?
Different than nowadays, but we lived from the garden. We had all of our own vegetables that was born and raised and butchered, and we had our own milk, our eggs, and our produce, or our protein actually came from the barn. And there was, we each one had our own jobs to do, carrying in water and filling up the boiler on wash days.
So when you were a kid and milking by hand, what was that process like?
You milk them, and then you pour them into the big bucket on the cream separator, it was called. And the cream came out of one of the smallest spout, and the skim milk came out of the other bigger spout. And nowadays we pay for skim milk, and years ago the pigs got it. They fed it all to the pigs. In a big barrel they would dump the skim milk and then put in ground feed, and that was for the pigs. And then my mother always had a lot of chickens for our own eggs, and she raised a lot of, I don't remember having a lot of geese, but my mother always had geese. And turkeys, I remember they always gave a turkey to the Catholic priest and the nuns for Thanksgiving or for Christmas. Everything was basically done at home. You didn't go to town and buy, fancy stuff. And we had to turn the cream, when it was separated, we had to take the cream and we had a butter turn that we had to kneel on and make our own butter. And my mother used to make cottage cheese. She would put it on the wood stove because we had to carry a lot of wood and a lot of water, and that wood stove was always heating the house, two-story house.
Elaine was telling me that there was a schoolhouse kind of
right across from your driveway, and then just down where that approaches. That was where I went to country school. Until my 5th grade, we went to the mission then. The nuns accepted the other children from the other country schools. And I started the mission when I was in 5th grade. We went to Mass every morning before there. It was run by the Catholic nuns, and we always went to Mass, and then we had our breakfast, you might say, or just a snack before we went to our classroom. And there was always, well, quite a few in each class. Sometimes there was 2 teachers for one. And going back to the country school, my dad always put in a bid for the hauling the water and for getting the wood in to get the school warm before the kids came to school. And that was a challenge. We had to walk from our home, probably half a mile, maybe not quite that much. But it was always cold. But we always had our snow pants and long stockings on, and it was different than nowadays.
Did you ever go into Ogama?
Well, in the summertime, yes. And I think it's still on the east side of the hall in Ogama. They had free movies that my dad would take us in for the free movies. And I think it's still white on that wall.
Do you remember any of the movies you watched?
No, heaven forbid, no. No, I don't remember any of the movies at all.
What was your husband's name?
Leo. He passed away when he was only 39 years old. And I was left with 7 children at home. Tim, the oldest one, was gone from home. And it was hard. But with all of the kids, they all had jobs to do, and they all pitched in and helped, and we made it. I only signed up once for the food commodities, and I said after 3 months, I said, no, we won't get that anymore. We'll just work for it. And then I just raised them all, and I remember when Alan it was in January, and it was a terrible, terrible storm, and he was not feeling good. And I told him to stay in the house, that I would go out and do the milking, because Alan was the oldest one then at home. But it wasn't easy. The kids had a pony or a horse. What was his name, Renee? Frisky, and we always got him hooked up on a sled or something. And then we always had a snowmobile that we put a car hood behind that, and I remember going out a lot on the snowmobile to haul the hay bales out. But going back to Alan, I had him to the doctor, and he was not feeling good, so I told him to stay in the house, and I went out. And it was storming out, and I was tempting. It went through my mind to take some twine string and string it from the house to the barn, so I wouldn't get caught in the storm. And I thought, no, I think I'll just stay in the house. And that's what I did. That was one terrible winter. It was thankful. I'm thankful for having my 8 kids, because they all had a job to do. And they all ended up having businesses of their own to this day and age. That was a big plus. Alan took over the farming, all of it. He done all of the farming, and I would help him. Not a whole lot. I was always in the house canning or taking care of the other little kid, because Jason, the youngest one, was only a year and a half. So somebody had to be babysitting him most of the time. There was a lot of ups and downs, I suppose, if I stop and think of, but it's been a good life, I would say, with 8 kids. And the kids helped with the gardening and shelling peas and cutting beans, and yeah. And Jason, there was almost 5 years between the last 2, and he was a little bit more spoiled with going fishing and going to auctions with me, and even going out west on different trips. Where the other kids were older, they had to stay home.
What is dairy farming like?
Hard work and good feed. I think the more good feed you had, And they saved all of the straws for bedding, so cows had bedding to lay on. Breakfast was at 8, dinner was at 12, and lunch was at 4, and supper was at 6. And it was a general routine every day. There wasn't too many overweight people, if men, women, kids, because we all worked hard. And it was all done by hand. And my husband, he was very talented with machinery and everything. He always ran the combine and well, anything that was mechanic, he had to run. I had a very large garden across the driveway. And Jason to this day says, yeah, I remember sitting behind the house shelling peas, and you would go out and come back with a pail full, and then you would come out with cabbage. And yeah, I always had a very big garden. I had a raspberry patch. I always had a few strawberries, not a lot, just enough to just nibble on. A lot of canning. And I always cooked up a lot of rhubarb too, and put strawberries in with the rhubarb to stretch out the berries. And I still eat a lot of rhubarb.
When you were farming, any kind of changes that you can think of in the farming industry?
Oh yeah, when it was haying time, they always had a big hay stack. They would stack their hay. And then they went to bales, small bales. Now there's the big round bales.
How about milking? Did you milk by hand?
I did when I was young. We had to milk the cows by hand and separate before we went to school. Yeah, I milked cows by hand. And I run the milking machines in the old barn too, before we built the new one.
Tell me about chef school that you did later in life.
With Social Security, as each one was 18, they was taken off the Social Security list. And I was only getting $30-some for each one that was living at home. And I knew when Jason turned 16, I had to have a job to support, because I didn't have enough income to raise any kids. So I just started doing a lot of different things with chef training, and had a job right at Fair Hills. I was chosen from our class to work at Fair Hills. And it was 70 miles round trip, so I said I should have stuck with Fair Hills because it was a good place to work. And then I worked at Newman's Mink Ranch. I worked there. And I done cake decorating from chef's training. And I done a lot of wedding pictures, flowers. I done a lot of graduation cakes. Every little job there is just to keep the wolf away from the door, I guess. But I kept myself busy. I think it's...
Where was the training at?
Right in Detroit Lakes, the Votech. Yeah, I done a lot of silk flowers until they switched to the ladies' bouquet. They went to the wrist bouquet on a lot of them. So, but I done a lot of different jobs like that. Just Lake Park, I worked at the Lefsa plant for one paycheck. That wasn't for me. Then I worked at Swift's for one paycheck, and I would get motion sickness. And the lady said, "You don't look at you just do what you have to do." Well, I had a lot of jobs, and I connected with the church. I was a Eucharistic minister for quite a few years.
And then did you work at the school?
Yes, in Waubun and Ogama both. I was assistant cook in Waubun, and I was a dishwasher in Ogama. It was in Waubun, I don't know, but when the casino opened up in '92, I quit working. I was working at Shirley's Cafe, and then I got more pay at the casino, and that was 1992, I think, when they first opened. And then I went up there and got a job. But the difference, when I was assistant cook in Waubun, we had to cut our lettuce. We had to do everything by hand. We peeled our own potatoes. There wasn't very little that we didn't chop up by ourselves, or boiled our eggs and had to shell them. And Ogama was very simple and easy. It was just the automatic dishwasher. There was one little boy that he would just love at Christmas time to come in the dish room where I was washing dishes, because I had, it was a music real fast dancing, and he was a handicapped little child. And he would come in there and we would dance. That was really fun. Now you would never be able to do that because we always touched each other. And you couldn't do that this day and age.
I hear you like to quilt. Can you tell me about your quilting?
Well, going way back many years, I've always done a little quilting even before I was married. And my daughter's got the one that I started when I was still at home, and I finally finished it. But I do a lot of quilting and donate to different organizations like the nursing home in Manoman, and then I have fundraisers for the church in Ogama. And a lot of the material was given to me, and a lot of it I bought. I had a couple of times I spent over $100 on material. And I just finished one this morning for our reunion, and that's on the couch over there. And then I give a quilt every year when we have our church dinner. I donate a quilt. But I'm pretty good at 8 to 12 hours a day quilting now.
Where did you learn how to do it?
I think from my mother, more or less, and my grandmother. She was very fussy with a lot of her quilts, and my grandmother Coogler, she done some quilts by hand that I had samples of her quilt tops. And I think it was just natural to pick up, but I don't make fancy ones, but they're very usable. Wear them out and then wash them, and I'll make some more for you. Yeah, I've got 3 of them on the couch right now that I just finished.
What are some of the biggest changes that you have seen in your lifetime?
All of this technology with smartphones. I do not have a smartphone. Yeah, that's a big change in my life, all of the technology stuff.
What are some words of wisdom that you would like to give to people?
Just look out for each other and to live one day at a time. That's what I do. I live one day at a time, and if I get tired, I lay down.
Essentia Health, our presenting sponsor, is proud to bring you Words of Wisdom. And TV3 and LB Video Productions.